Good morning, participants. My name is Javeria, and I am your host for this webinar series. Before we begin, I would like for you to check your audio settings for uninterrupted audio, and if you are facing any difficulties, you can contact me through the chat box and we will resolve your issue. Without further ado, on behalf of Faculty of Architecture and Planning, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Technical University, Lucknow, I would like to welcome you all to the webinar series launched to engage with architecture students, researchers, educators, and fellow architects on various interesting topics. The theme of this webinar is Symbiotic Ecologies, Performance-Driven Architecture. Our presenter for the session, architect Amit Gupta, is the founding partner of Studio Symbiosis. He has done his postgraduate from Architectural Association London and was working with Zaha Hadid Architects for a period of 4 years. During this period, he worked on award-winning projects such as Civil Code Madrid, Circle de Zurich, Istanbul Master Plan, Aramco Research Center, along with other commission projects. His co-presenter for the session is architect Britta Nobel, who is also the founding partner of Studio Symbiosis Architects. After graduating from Architecture Association London with a master's degree in architecture and urbanism, she has also worked with Zaha Hadid for about 4 years. She was the lead project architect at Zaha's, designing highly acclaimed visionary projects such as Abu Dhabi Performing Arts Center, Broad Art Museum in Michigan, Dubai Opera House, Office Tower Dubai, Tripoli People's Conference Hall, and various high-end villas for private clients. Currently, as the founding partner of Studio Symbiosis Architects, she has the lead of various design projects all over India. The range of the projects varies in scale from Kanpur Master Plan to a sports complex, Athletic Ripples, to various hotel projects ranging from international groups of Hilton to in the Indian leaders such as Taj. Without further delay, I would like to now welcome Amit sir and Britta ma'am to begin the session for today. Over to you, Amit sir.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for the introduction. Do you see my screen now?
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible. You can begin now.
Camera is on. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for participating in this, I hope, exciting web series. So the topic which we chose for today is called symbiotic ecology. Now, the question which we like to start with is very simple question: that is, architecture has any responsibility? As architects, is our job just to make something which looks nice, or is it a bit beyond that? So before we try to answer this question, I would like to share some images with you. So this is what is happening around us, and of course, in this current lockdown, we know what is happening if we tamper too much with nature. So this is when polar bears are running out of Arctic ice and they have nowhere to go. The once very beautiful corals of the underwater have now been bleached due to the El Nino effect and the global warming. So as per a study conducted in the US, 39% of the carbon footprint in the US is accounted by the building construction industry. So now this brings us to the answer to the initial question, is that architects are responsible for anything? So the answer is, of course, we are responsible for creating a smart and sustainable tomorrow. So the thing is that we're not looking at creating anything which is only looking good, but we deeply believe that architecture should be performance driven. Every piece of architecture should have a meaning also. Without meaning, architecture is just a graphic and nothing else. So as a part of this presentation, we have split this into 4 different parts. So the first part we would like to speak is how we are creating symbiosis with natural systems. So through our architecture, how are we analyzing natural systems and transforming this into architecture. The very first project is Perfume Park and Museum in Kannauj in Uttar Pradesh. So for this, the design brief was that it's a twin city agreement to create a skill development center and also museum building. So the twin city agreement is between the city of Kannauj and city of grass in front. Now the design brief was to create a skill development center plus a perfume park and museum. So to start this project, it was a very interesting start because with any project, the way we start is to go into the research of what we want to do. So in this, the idea was very clear that the essence of any perfume is a flower. And we wanted to look deeply into a flower, that what is the series we can get from this? How can we take this mathematical system, or what can we extract as a system from this natural flower system and create architecture from? So from this, what we realized, if you look at the middle image, this is a series of radiating hexagons, which are actually organized in a Fibonacci series. So we took this and translated this into a Fibonacci sequence, which was actually overlapped onto the site to create the design grid. So this is us creating or setting up a system which will be deployed later on the site. So we set the center point of the entire master plan or the design site as the museum building, and then we have this radiating squares out. The design brief is very important for us because we need to amalgamate the design brief with the design itself. So here the principle was that we overlap the Fibonacci series on the site, and then the design brief required for this bigger parcel. So essentially the brief was split into three parts. What we need in the center of the master plan is the perfume park and the perfume museum, which has a museum, auditorium, and also retail area, plus some cafe. Then as we go out on the surroundings of the master plan, the design brief requirement was to have some distillery, skill development center, and some guest houses and a little hotel. Now, if it would have not been this underlying grid, we might have ended up with some differentiated buildings in the master plan. But by using one coherent grid, it gave us the capability to combine everything together into one coherent design, where everything resonates with each other. So the bottommost image shows us the actual museum building sitting at the heart of the design with this radiating grid moving out. So by doing this, what we're able to achieve is by creating a symbiosis with nature. So we took a principle of nature and tried to link it back to the architecture which we are creating. So in this case, the central building itself was treated again as three petals. So the idea was to take this forward, and the outline of this building is actually coming from base grid. Now, what is the benefit apart from creating a unified architecture? So all the parts which we have in the design are actually radiating towards the central building. And also this uniform gradient of hues was generated through the design. So in terms of design distribution, the small pockets next to the building are where we're growing the flowers for the perfume making, and around it are these bigger buildings. The architecture of the central building is really like the three petals. For us, it was a bit abstraction. It was not really literally taking a flower and converting this into a piece of architecture, but it was our interpretation of how we see these three petals and superimpose this on the side. All these pathways are radiating into the design itself. So wherever you're walking from the master plan, you end up in the heart of the design. Any main artery which you take, it takes you to the central focal point. So by using this mathematical system, we could actually organize the entire build form and the entire landscape built typologies into one. Also, if you notice the underside of the building, the same series is projected upon this to create a uniform architecture. So also it's about blending the outside and inside to create a very fuzzy boundary between what is built and what is landscape. Now, glass as a contemporary material is often deemed as a very bad material because it lets a lot of sunlight in. But through our studies, what we have tried is to study the cantilever depth to make sure that we're cutting down the direct sunlight. So this enables us that from inside the building, we have this magnificent view of the park itself, but you're not heating up the building too much. So this was possible through iterative process. We did simulation studies in terms of heat gain of the building and arrive at the actual form. So now moving on to the next project. This is a villa which is based in Arizona. So in this villa, what we started doing was we started looking at the surroundings of the site itself. So the site surroundings, this is very close to the site. This is around, I think it's 3-4 kilometers away. And the thing from this natural system which really fascinated us was that the landscape and the built is really one. You cannot really define the distinction between what is built and what is landscape. And also the treatment of this rock, you see the striations on the landscape actually flow seamlessly onto the built form. So it is again an interpretation of from our side of how we see this landscape typology. And so from this going on, we create a system based on attractors where we put the major function points on the site and generate a diagram. So this diagram actually resulted in this two different parts of the site. And also it's a very natural site. So the idea was not to do full landscaping, just to have some streets which connect the topography of the site. This project is in Arizona in US. So we use this very rugged terrain of the project, of the site, and try to integrate the build form. So this is the final outcome which we came up with in terms of the design exercise. So again, here we tried to create this attractor system where we have these three nodes in the main building itself. So the idea is, of course, that we have privacy for certain areas. The master bedroom takes one of these circles. Then there's the living room in the other. And the third one is more for public functions. So it really brings these three different functions, but they all come together at the heart of the design. So the idea was to create this differentiated system from this very simple aggregation system which nature gave us. When we are designing, we also try to accommodate the essence of form, structure, and program into one. So that's what we were doing here, is that the building actually dips down at certain moments where the structure stability can be achieved. And also for inside function, we have areas where we can actually have more privacy for the people inside. The owner of the house, he actually is breeding horses also. So this was a part of the design brief that we need to have a horse ranch, a show arena, and a breeding farm. So out of this 5-acre property, we are actually only occupying around 600 square meter of the building. And the rest of the site is this rugged terrain. So we're not really interfering too much with the natural landscape. We are leaving it as it is, so the beauty of the nature comes out. And then we're creating the show arena on the other side of it. The next project actually, so as in terms of system, what we are trying is the same system can be deployed from a smaller scale project to a bigger scale project also. So that's what I would like to showcase here. The next project is a mixed-use development in Pune. It's an 18-acre riverfront development, which actually lies in high flood line. So the site every year is flooded. So this was a very interesting design brief. So whenever the site is flooded, it also erodes the site away. So we took this erosion principle as our design guide and a design principle to start with. This is an overview of the entire site and the design which was superimposed on top of it. So the idea here was really erosion. So what we're trying to achieve is eroded landscape, where the built and landscape is merging into each other. So going on, what we have done is we placed a tractor point on the site. So this is the overall site. And then we have this high flood line which is coming through. And then after placing the tractor point, we could create a system whereby we are emulating or simulating the erosion principles on the site. So we're trying to simulate nature on the site, trying to achieve a base grid. So this base grid actually gives us the possibility of achieving a cohesive design. So what we see here is the build. So as a final outcome, given that it was a shopping mall, we also had the flexibility that it was only G+1 building. So the forms could be a bit more sculpted. In terms of structure, it was easier to resolve it. If it was a very high-rise building, it would be tricky for us to achieve such a complex structure. And then in terms of the landscape and the build, we try to do this play of light and shadow with the building. And the landscape actually folds and comes out of the build form. We have tried to create a multi-layered space in this particular project, where the roof is being used as amphitheater. Then the lower ground floor is also scooped out, so there's not really light condition. It is very nice steps which take you there. So when you're standing in this kind of a multi-layered space, it also expands the space more, and you get visibility condition becomes highly visible and porous when you're in the project itself. The second part of the presentation looks at context. So context is a very important part of architecture for sure. But the question often asked is, what is context? So context is, it can be the site, it can be a historical building around it, it can be just a solar factor. So there's a lot of parameters which we can define as context. So in this part of it, what we're looking at is how we can create a symbiotic relationship of architecture with the context of the site. The first project is a skyrise project based in Versova in Mumbai. So here the owner has 4 acres property which overlooks onto the ocean. And here the design brief was to simply create every apartment which gets a view of the water. And the nice thing for us is that the building in between us and the waterfront is actually coming into this zone which cannot be built higher, it cannot be reconstructed. So we would be a high tower without any obstruction towards the waterfront. So now for us, this was the context. The context was the view which we get from the site itself. As per the design brief, the owner wanted 2 separate buildings. It was mainly for phasing out the project, so 2 different towers can be built in different time frames. So we took this very simple brief of 2 different buildings, and we started looking at iterations of how we can get maximum view from each apartment. The client brief was each apartment, but we tried to take it one step further, and we set a brief where every room and every space from every apartment gets a view of the water. So we started by making a 360-degree form, whereby this form actually negates any corners. So in a square, you can see we get this very hard edges, and we get also a back and a front of every building. By transforming this base form into ellipse, we are actually maximizing the view angle from the site. And then the buildings were rotated to check which is the optimum placement on the site. And then the diagram on the right, this actually shows that we're utilizing the views of each and every room for the water. So any room you are here, it actually gets a view of the waterfront on this 180-degree waterfront which we have. So as an adaptive system which we had, so the site was extruded up to create a podium for parking. And then these 2 towers are sitting on top of it, which we treated them more like dancing towers. For us to do a project in Bombay at such a scale is also doing something for the city. It's not just generating number of units and achieving the FSI. So in this case, we treated this more as 2 dancing towers, which stand out in the skyline of Mumbai. So following the design parameter which we set up for this exercise, for this particular project, is that we wanted full glass with the apartment facing the water. And on the side of it, we are actually getting this solid pieces. So essentially, every module has one side solid and one side glass. And then the rotation makes sure that we are only putting glass where we need to, otherwise it becomes solid. And the core is placed on the back side of the building, where we don't really need this view condition. So we are maximizing the views by doing this. And also for construction purposes, the form is not really a curved form. It's actually boxes which are placed on top of each other. By doing this, we end up with planar flat glass pieces. And also we're playing with the depth cantilever of the slab. So again, by playing with the depth of the cantilevers, we managed to reduce the heat gain of the build form. So this is a view from the apartment which we are getting. So this was a design brief which we really set up. So the parameter was very simple in terms of the context, that every apartment gets a very generous view of the ocean front. That's what we're getting. So these dancing towers were really seen by us not just as 2 development buildings or apartment buildings, but as sculpted forms in the skyline of Mumbai. And they're designed in such a way that the -1 form actually hugs the positive of the other. And they're not really interlocking with each other, but as a silhouette, they are doing this. So, and also the idea was not to create a big mass out of it. So how we place these 2 towers, from 90% of the viewing angles, you see them as 2 separate towers, not as one big mass which comes together. This is a very interesting project for us because it was an international design competition where we had a brief of creating a new train station at an existing site in Gwalior. So we won this competition 2 years ago. And for us, when we started the project, we had this very important factor in the middle of the site, which is the existing train station itself. So for us, we did not really see this project as just a train station, but for us, it was a hub for the entire city. Then this is a very interesting moment for us, where the station sits between the historical old city and the new city. So this becomes a melting pot for the city, where this becomes more of a social space rather than just a central station where people are coming to catch the train. The history of the site is this is the existing building for the station which is being used, and it's a heritage building. So this building is not listed as a grade. It is not listed by a historical society. There's no grading for this. But the central part of the building is 1908, and then later on these two buildings were added on in 1980. So we had a choice to demolish this building and start with a tabula rasa, where we can have a flat site and just go with it. But we feel that context in this case is very important, and it is very important that we save this monument and heritage of the country, and not just save it, but try to resonate it and echo this in what we're trying to create. So for this particular design, what we started looking at was this existing building and the architecture of the city of Gwalior. So these arches actually create a very interesting piece of the central station building. And the design brief was also to create large span structures. So in the existing, given that this project, we have existing platforms. It's not a new station which is in there, it's an existing platform. So the largest span which we're getting from one platform to another was 32 meters. So by taking these arches, we transformed them into a 3D system. And this 3D module which we created, this actually became a module it became a 3-dimensional dome system. And relatively translated into the architecture and the form of the entire design. So as we can see that this new building resonates the old, and the idea was to use very simple glass, so we're not taking a very heavy background. And the arches of the new just resonate the old. Wherever you see the building from, the resonance of the history translates through. In the roof of the project, also the light condition was very important because the train station is having very deep structures. So we did not want to rely on artificial light because this will be creating sustainable architecture. We wanted to use natural light as much as we can. So within this 3-dimensional module, we inserted an element which actually brings in light. Now to design this element of light, we also studied the patterns of Gwalior Fort, and we actually translate those patterns into the roof skylight system. Now each module is also integrated. Each module creates the architecture, form, space, facade, and also the MEP and all the services are going through the column. So it's an integrated approach towards design, where you cannot really segregate anything from each other. It's a holistic approach towards design which we try to achieve in this. When we go to the platform level, we get this very nice repetition of the arches on the platform, whereby if you're standing at any point and if you light it in the night, it will give us very nice effect. And also this repetition, there's an inherent beauty about repetition also. If you repeat a component, it creates a series of resonance. The next project is again a design competition which we won, and this is Baipanalli train station, Bangalore. So here, this is not an operational station. The line actually stops in the top part of where the image stops. And this was a greenfield project for us. So here we had a little bit more flexibility. Now, how come this project is important to us in terms of interpreting the context? So Bangalore is known as the garden city of the country. If you look at this in 1973, the green cover of the city was 68.2%. And in 2020, the green cover of the city of Bangalore has reduced to 2.96%. So it's really astonishing for us that the green cover of the city, of the garden city of India, is only 2.96%. So when we started the project and we were doing the research on the city of Bangalore, we found this graphic. And from this moment, we knew what our design will be. So for us, we started with a garden city concept, where we take a garden city, where in the heart of the city is the main building and the central part. And as you go out, there's strips of green, which are resonating the garden city concept. So we took this idea and we unfolded this onto the site, whereby we are actually also creating green buffers between the railway track, the build form, and the street which is in front of us. Then moving on to the station building, the roof of the station building is a completely green roof. In Bangalore, we have very ambient temperature. So the temperature in the city of Bangalore is around 35 degrees max. So we can give a roof where people can come out and actually enjoy the city in this long halt period. And then as a part of the evolution of the diagram of the right, we also point some holes to get light inside the station. Now, how did we come up with the build form? It was very simple. We started looking at all the movement trajectory, and the idea was to maximize the surface area of the build form. So first of all, we started puncturing the form. We started pinching it inside by creating separate areas for departure, arrival, and bus terminal. By doing this from the onset, we start segregating the flow of people into the building. After this, looking at the movement of the trains, we further accentuate the build form by responding to the movement of the trains on both sides. So this resulted in the overall form of the building, whereby we have a green roof with this building next to it, flanking it. And this maximum surface area gave us the form of the building. Again, for the entrance, we have tried to achieve deep cantilevers, whereby a visitor is actually welcomed into the project. And there's a big outdoor plaza, which is a landscaped area. So the idea is that when we enter this train station complex, it resonates with this historical relevance of Bangalore as a garden city. And we also see it as a revival project. So it's not just a project which is, again, serving as a train station, but it's historically reviving the project itself. So inside the train station, we are puncturing these green boys, whereby we are bringing in the light, and also we are bringing in the garden city concept within the station. So this is a roof plan where a person who is also halting with the train for a couple of hours can come. So the idea is also there are some buildings around. They also get some green area on the roof. So in such a dense urbanism, it's still possible if we try to articulate spaces, we can still get such a big plaza on top. So this is a view of the top part of the train station where we're articulating on green space. So if you're actually on top of the terrace, you don't realize that you're in a very busy train station. Here you disconnect from what is happening below you, but visually through this courtyard, you can still see through. It also gives us a flexibility of visual porosity. The next project in terms of context is Hilton Kathmandu. So here for us, the design context was interesting in the sense that the designers actually wanted something which is more relevant in terms of the city of Kathmandu. So what we started taking from the city of Kathmandu is a prayer flag. We were very interested in using something local, but we did not want to go the way of using something which is wood carving, so very traditional. We want to be a bit fresh. Use something which has, trying to take something which is there, but has not been used at all. So we arrived at this prayer flag. So this prayer flags in the city of Kathmandu are everywhere, and it creates a very big resonance with how the city behaves and works. So what we have done is we have taken this prayer flags and translated this into the vertical fins of the building, which are made of dichroic glass. And this glass actually changes color based on the solar angle. So if you're standing on the ground floor and whichever height the glass is, you'll get different shades of the color. The diagram here was very simple. We opened up the build form towards the mountain views which we got from the city center. So the highest peak which is from the city center is Lantang Range. And on the left side, we have put the dichroic flags. So these are the vertical flags which are resonating with the prayer flags of the city of Kathmandu. So here it's a hotel building. So trying to respect the requirements of very efficient system, we have played around with this very simple system of dichroic glass, which brings and articulates the city of Kathmandu to the Hilton project. By doing this, we start creating a subsystem of this film. So we can also, on the top floor, we push this in to create the all-day dining. And from here, we're getting spectacular views of the entire city. So this one I will just skip through. I think we might be short on time. So the next project is Kanpur mixed-use development. So here the idea for us was very interesting that it is a redevelopment project on the banks of River Ganga. So for us, the context here was the river Ganga itself. So we looked at these patterns which the river is creating. It's all a branching system, it's a fluid system. So here we start using the iterative processes of how we can articulate iteration as a design process. So looking at the existing site, we started analyzing the existing activities and we placed the markers which are attractors on the site. So these attractors are very important for us because we don't want to create a redevelopment project by demolishing everything. So the important aspects of site are still retained and the rest are actually modulated. So to do this, once we place the attractor points on the site, we ran the CFD analysis script, whereby the attractors are modulating the grid and they're creating this very fluid pattern next to the river. This is a time-lapse animation study of this iterative process. So why is it iterative process? Because in this process itself, we managed to reconfigure the system and create these different patterns and differentiate patterns based on the time lapse. So our aim was very simple when we started as designers on this project. We were looking at a very strong city grid, which is coming from the city of Kanpur. And the idea was to create a rectilinear grid which comes and close to the riverfront, it starts creating this very fluid form. So in the end, this is what we achieved, that we have these very straightforward built forms, because as per guidelines also we have to respect that the plots need to follow a certain ratio 1:2. Then we need to make square plots, otherwise Vastu becomes the issue for us. So the lower part of the master plan is residential unit. And as we go up, this is all the area which is more fluid, and this is commercial part of the design. So this is how we translate the city grid. So this very rectilinear city grid comes and it starts transforming into and starts morphing into this more fluid riverfront. And then on the riverfront itself, we have a very fluid movement, which translates into ghat, a big commercial area. And the build form behind also acts as silhouette. So the heights of the buildings are changing and transforming, trying to strengthen the move which is in front. We have these green lungs which are coming from inside the city and taking people towards the waterfront. By doing this, we're segregating the movement on the side. So the vehicular traffic is segregated from the pedestrian and bike traffic. By doing this, a person can easily come out of his house, enter the green lung, and walk towards the riverfront. As a gateway to the city of Kanpur, two iconic buildings were generated, low-rise buildings. So one is actually hosting indoor part of the archaeological museum. This is the archaeological site on the left. And the other one becomes the city center town hall. So by doing this, we are trying to also create this gateway to the city of Kanpur. And with these two buildings, which actually arch towards each other and connected through a pedestrian plaza. Now this project is very important to us because in this one, this is one of the first projects we started using simulation studies to do heat gain analysis, and we try to analyze how we can reduce the heat gain of a building through iterative process. It's the headquarters of Punjab Kesari and based in Noida. So the way we started was we started looking at the optimum built window ratio. So we ran the simulation where the openings of the windows, which we see here, are constantly changing and updating with each iteration. And the efficiency curve is trying to reach the efficiency of the opening ratio. So also trying to craft local architecture. The idea was very simple to contemporary floor plates, contemporary form. But then the facade of the building is using this traditional Indian pattern. So we started with a grid where we have these three grids of hexagons overlapped on each other, and to create the differentiate facade opening ratios which we wanted to achieve. So we have the different conditions for north, south, east, west, these different factors which we got. And by running the simulations again, we managed to create a catalog of facade openings and a catalog of how we can architect the facade in this way. So this is the chart, the catalog we started generating. It's a simple system with three hexagons that start scaling with each other, and we do a Boolean operation on this. So what we achieved by doing this is that the north facade gets 81% opening, west facade 54, south 27, and east 62. So it's the same system. We're not really changing the system. It's a very nice gradient facade system which starts changing the facade opacity as we move along the entire facade. and this is the final outcome which we got. Coming to the interior, the staircase was again a big challenge for us. We thought long. We did not want to create a sculpture as such. We thought that we treat the staircase itself as a sculptural element. So in this case, we had to again do some optimization in terms of how we run the system. And the structural consultant was also using parametric software, where we were checking constantly the self-load of the staircase against the cantilever. And in the end, we have only base plates on the floor, one plate here, and this is a supporting system to support the entire staircase. It's a freestanding staircase which becomes a sculpture in the space itself. Now, the last part of the presentation actually speaks about material intelligence. So in this case, the first project is very interesting one for us. This is an actual image of Smart Launcher, which we made for Godrej around 3-4 years ago. So when we are creating products, it's very important for us to look into the material. And in every part of architecture we are trying, our aim is to always look at natural materials and trying to understand their strengths and trying to understand how they behave. So in Smart Launcher, the idea was to also revive a very old technique called kerfing. Kerfing is essentially the spacing of the slits which we see on the Smart Launcher. And based on the distance of the slits, we can create a double or single curve form. If you would have used a different kind of slit, we could have created double curve form also. So here the entire exercise for us was how to create a very simple to execute object, but through very complex iterations which you're doing in the office. So after doing a lot of stress analysis on the form, and then checking the iterations in terms of curving depth, we managed to create a very simple system which the carpenters could execute. So in this image, you can see that the curving spacing is changing, the location is changing, and where the curving is done is changing. At times it's done on the negative end, times it's done on the positive end. So just through this curving depth and the spacing, that we're able to achieve this very fluid and very curvaceous form. It is, of course, a designer's research. So when we are doing this digital model, a lot of analog models are also done. So what we see here is we did studies in terms of which kind of wood we need to use, what is the kind of coursing which we need to study. And so we had a lot of failures also. So some things broke. And before that, before we did physical prototypes, we also did some digital prototypes. So at the bottom of the screen, what you see here, it's the sheet which was given to the carpenter to execute. It's a very simple thing which was given. And through this one sheet where the distance of the curving is given, we managed to execute the Smart Launcher. The last part of the project in terms of material intelligence of the presentation is it's called TouchMe. So it is again a part of research which has been done in the office for the past 8-9 years. And by looking into this research, you have created different products at different times. So the system which you're looking at is minimal surface. And in minimal surface, it's a tension-based system where the surface takes the minimum part based on the strings and the model. So Bubble is also minimum part system. We start creating a catalog of systems. This is a Batwing family. It's a mathematical model which is triply periodic, which means we can aggregate this in 3 dimensions. Then coming from this one prototype, we started looking at the porosity of the system and started creating a catalog of this. Then of course came the aggregation system, how we can start aggregating. So at times research does not need to end in terms of architecture. It's about understanding the system. Once the system is under control, we can always deploy it in different scales and different systems. So this is where we are trying to create a bench from it. But the project which I would like to show you here, it was displayed at India Design Fair. And this is the biggest double curved minimal surface, solid surface, which has been done in Asia Pacific. So here what we're doing was we are translating this minimal surface into a 4-meter high system where it's a sculpture which is inside out. So we're playing with a condition where we want people to play with it, and that's why we called it TouchMe. The idea is that you can touch it, feel it, go inside and check the porosity condition. So it's a very playful system which we wanted to do here, and of course coming from nature. And also it was a research topic for us and for the executors and for Korean also, where we are actually doing thermoforming at a very big scale. And here we actually played around with a lot of different systems. with a lot of different techniques of execution, and the entire team was helping us execute them. So this is just a part of the video, and in the end, the final result was this, which we displayed at the India Design Fair. So we can see people are interacting with this. This is why we call it Touch Me. So it's really an interactive installation, which is very fluid, and we want people to come and be part of it. So that's it from my side. I hand it back to you. So any questions? If you have any questions, I would like to take them.
Thank you so much, sir. That was a great presentation that you've just showed us. And it's really nice to see how these projects were conceptualized and how they have been designed and how you've reached the final design. So it was very informative. I have now opened the floor for questions and answers from the participants, and you guys can put your questions in the chat box and we can answer them.
To us offline also. So Javera, I give it back to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the great presentation. Any questions from the participants? The floor is open for questions. You can ask sir any questions regarding any of the projects.
So perhaps there's no questions coming right now. We can take the questions offline also if anything comes up later.
Sir, so we have a question from Rajhans Rai. Hello, Amit sir, can you hear me?
Hello.
Amit sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so there is a question from Rajhans Rai. He's asking that the towers that you had designed in Mumbai, the Versova one, is it based on the solar path or is it just an organic development interpretation? Sorry.
It's based on the view. It's not about the solar part because you don't get sites every day where there's the 180-degree view of the waterfront. So there, the solar we're controlling through cantilever. It's not really following the solar path. It's actually following the views of the waterfront.
Okay, great. We have another question from Rajiv Kumar Srivastav. He's asking, by using so much glass, are we doing justice with ecological balance?
So it again depends which project, because also we're trying. So let's say this image which we have on the left is Hilton Kathmandu. So there the temperature goes till 32 degrees or so, and also the glass specification matters a lot. So there we're using a double DGU system, double glazing. So when we are proposing also a glass building, we're actually doing a lot of simulations in terms of the heat gain. So it's not necessary that if we end up using a full glass, it is that, because we can also do, we can optimize the heat gain of a building through the specification. But having said this, in most of the projects, it's really about the location. In Kathmandu, it's not so hot, so we managed to do the glass. In Versova, we are using a lot of glass, but it's really about the view, and also the cantilevers are helping us cut the heat gain.
Yes, I guess I believe that the Versova towers, as you had mentioned, you had calculated the iteration and done sort of a solid fill and void with glass to control that, right?
So it's only one side is glass. So if you look at one cube, one side is glass and one side is solid. So only the part which is facing the waterfront is glass and the other side is solid, also for privacy issues. So you don't look into another room from, let's say, one apartment is not looking into another apartment. So it's an alternating system. So this is completely solid. So one side is solid and one side is glass.
Okay, okay, great. We have another question from Bushra Parveen. She's asking, in the railway station Bangalore project, which type of green roof was proposed? And further, she asks, does this load of the green roof affect the design?
Not really. So in terms of green roof, it's it's just grass for which we need 300 planting, and then the grass is planted on top. And of course, for the shrubbery, we have localized. So for any tree, we need. So you can see there's not really a very high tree which is there. The trees are in the courtyard. So for a tree, we need 1.2 by 1.2 meter earth fill. For grass, we need 300. And in terms of the loading, it's not a heavy load. So and the loading was actually calculated for the structure, and the roof is being designed as per the loading of the earth. But it's a very minimal loading which we're doing on top.
There is one more question. In this, the participant is asking, could you elaborate a little on the structural system that you had used in the Versova Towers?
So in Versova, it's a steel system which we're using. And of course, the core stabilizes the entire form. And the skeleton of the build form is also, so we're not really curving the column, it's inclining the column. And then that's how they're connecting each floor to another. Versova is a very complex project in plan because the towers are rotating, so it means that the floor plans are changing. But this was the main exercise for us to make sure that although we are doing this, but we're still getting uniform areas on the floor.
The next question is from Anupriya. She has an interesting question. She's asking, what is the scope of mathematically designed architectural installations beyond just being interactive modules?
The thing is, in terms of TouchMe, this is exploration of 2-3 things. First of all, architecture we can also prototype. It's a prototype which we are doing. It's solid surface. So how it helps us is it first of all helps us in understanding the material also. And in this, Korean India was also involved with us. So the entire Korean India design team, their entire design studio was with us. So we all understand the material. First of all, this is one good thing about doing prototype. And second thing is, as architects, before I deploy a system on a very big scale, let's say if I want to make a minimal house like Toyo Ito, he has used minimal surface for doing I think 1 lakh square meter exposition center. For us as architects, if we do something small as a prototype, it can help us in understanding the plus and minus of the system and evaluate this if you want to deploy this at a bigger scale, and yes or no, and if yes, then what might be the issues with it.
I hope that answers your question, Anupriya. So the next question is from Sonali Srivastav. She has asked regarding the Kanpur Riverfront Development Project. It's her personal opinion that such a lavish design is what she's trying to say is the proposal of such a lavish design, is it permissible in context to the surrounding? So I guess she wants to know what the surrounding context, how it responded to the surrounding context of Kanpur.
See, for us, the context there was a waterfront. So if you speak about the context of Kanpur, like what is the context of Kanpur? This would be my counter question. Because, if you look at the Times magazine, when we presented the master plan to the chief minister and you're returning in the flight, somehow in the flight itself, there was a magazine, Time magazine, and it read on the cover, Kanpur is the filthiest city in India. So, when you speak about this, the context of Kanpur was that this area which we were trying to redevelop, this was actually, this particular area discharges so much waste into the river Ganga, and it was a redevelopment scheme. So for us, the context was the riverfront because in Kanpur itself, in terms of landmark historical architecture, for us it was really redeveloping the city. And the context for us was to give a city to the residents where they can come in the evening and enjoy the waterfront.
Yeah, I guess that's a great answer because I guess as your ideology goes for the firm, you sort of give more importance to the natural existing context than the cultural and the social or the economical context of any given site. So if you're responding to the site with the natural elements, that's your utmost priority, right?
It really depends, no? Like in Gwalior, which I showed. So there we really took everything from the existing station, which is a heritage building. So it's architecture is not just about one element. It's about climate. It's about context, what the site is, what is the topography of the site. We need to analyze all the things, and then we try to pick the most important critical question in front of us and dig deeper into this and create architecture out of
That's great. Sir, I think a lot of our final year students are fascinated by what you've shown us, and they are asking about what softwares have you been using to develop these iterations, because I guess they're looking at taking up projects like these in their thesis.
it. See, in terms of softwares, I would not go into specific details of which software, but then you can classify softwares into concept design stage and execution design stage. So I think if you want to look into, okay, like if for us the next stage for Baipanali is to do a Revit model as per the contract. But Revit is something which I would not use for concept design. But then if you're an expert Revit user, you can also do concept design. I think it does not matter. You can pick any software. We believe that if you know one software very well, you can do anything in it. So don't get stuck in which particular software you need to learn. Just pick one and learn it. All the softwares in the end can give you the same result. But having said this, don't think that AutoCAD 3D can do it unless you start doing coding in AutoCAD. So AutoCAD is specifically for deliverables, plan sections, elevations, X-roughing drawings, all this.
I guess on behalf of the students, that's all the questions we've got for now. I have a question myself. So how
Sure.
much do you think that the design process of such projects, how much time do you think you need to give in comparison to the conventional, designs? Do you think it sort of compromises on the fee that we charge?
So for us, it really depends. As designers, I always tell our clients also that we are not accountants, we are designers. So at times the design can come in 5 days, at times it cannot come in 2 months. It happens. At times you get stuck on certain element in the project that you just cannot comprehend it and get past it. So typically we take 2 months for a concept design. At times we are also done concept design in 2-3 weeks. But I think 2 months is a good process to really evolve a design properly because first 2-3 weeks actually go in analyzing the site, context, design brief, and really understanding what the project is and what are the elements you want to explore. After this, I would say 3 to 4 weeks go in modeling it, doing iterations of design, writing the script, checking what is good, what is making sense in terms of the project, and then of course it takes us 2 weeks to 3 weeks to do the presentation. So I would say 2 to 3 months is a good time frame, but in India, at times we get only 1 week or 2 weeks, but we really try to push it because in the end we want to give a good output to the client. In terms of fees, of course, we cannot do projects at a fees which it really is relative because you have practices which also pick up projects at 0.15% fee. So of course you will not do that. I would rather do less than good projects than rather doing a lot of projects than trying to rush them through.
That's a great lesson I think everyone should take, even the students, that you should give your dedicated 100% to one project at a time and get the best results. So I guess, sir, that's all the questions that we have for today's session. Again, I would like to thank you again for your presentation and your input for our students. And on behalf of Faculty of Architecture, I'd like to thank Britta ma'am as well for the presentation. We hope to see you sometime soon again in the campus, and maybe this time we can involve the students in a workshop along with you. We had the fortunate, chance to work with you at the faculty development program, but we're hoping to do one with the students soon.
No, thanks a lot. Thank you for inviting us for this webinar series, and I wish you guys best of luck for the remaining one.
Thank you so much, sir. Good
Thanks a
evening.
lot. Yeah.